Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we're absolutely thrilled to be talking to the brothers of the newly imagined Color Purple. We have Corey Hawkins and we have Coleman Domingo. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Okay.
Thanks, Gil. Thanks, both Coleman and Corey for your performances here. When we look at both Mister and Harpo, they are raised in the same harsh environment, yet they exhibit vastly different forms of masculinity. What factors contribute to this divergence in their behavior, and what does it tell us about the influence of environment versus individual choice? And I'd like to start with you first, Corey.
Well, I think Harpo is a product of his circumstance. I think he is extremely blessed in that he's sort of further along the path than I think his father is, than his father's father. And the beautiful part about The Color Purple is that Alice Walker gave us this beautiful poem to sort of start to not only talk about sisterhood, but talk about manhood and what that means and all its colors and forms and what masculinity means or meant back then. Harpo, for example, I think he's grew up sort of looking for that love from his father, wanting that love from his father. And not really knowing how to express that. He didn't have the language to express it. And quite frankly, I think a lot of us today still don't have the language to express it. But Harpo chose to ask the questions. And I think also Harpo saw what his father might have wanted to be. Could he have found his song, right? Could he have found his voice? And the other key thing I think for Harpo is that he finds love in Sophia, a woman who is Sophia, you know, even just saying that name, right? It just rings. And I think that engenders in Harpo a curiosity about how to love his woman, how to love Black women. And he leans into it. And I love that he leans into it. And he challenges the norms. He challenges his father and he makes mistakes as well along the path. But ultimately they find each other in the end. And that is what love is in all its messiness and all its forms. Finding that language. You might not know it, but you're on the journey to find it. And also finding that love and redemption for his father and forgiving his father for not having that language.
I think that it all stems from these are, I would say, three different kind of men. Old Mister, played by Lou Gossett Jr., is still steeped in a very different belief in how to survive, how to make your place in the world, how do you devote yourself to your family, and he believes it's embedded in the land. Farm that land, grow your own, that's your power. You have different, so you have stacked it with different generations. Then you have Mister who's been taught that too, even the way he treats women, the way he or doesn't treat women. I think it's all learned behavior. And the world is evolving and changing. And Mister is, you know, probably he's someone, the way he's in the text is that he had dreams and aspirations like anybody else. But like he says, in the second act of our film, he says, when he's drunk and out of his mind, he's like, I could have been in Suge's band if I didn't have to till my granddaddy's land. So he had dreams and aspirations as well that were stunted. So therefore, it turned into whether he felt small in the world, and that led to he abusing people, not only, you know, the women in his life, but, you know, not being the father. I think that he didn't understand. He doesn't have language for tenderness or love. I think he's a man of a different generation. But then we had to make it very complicated because it is a complicated dance for him to find his way to grow. You know what I mean? There are seeds planted in him very late. You know what I mean? And I think they're planted by those that are evolving. You know what I mean? Are evolving way past him. And so it's a lot of unpacking a lot of generational trauma that's going on. And I think that, Mr. doesn't even realize that he needs to unpack it until everything implodes.
Hey, Anthony White from New York City. Thank you both so much. The Color Purple. You are both portraying such iconic characters from this beloved story with Mr. and Harpo, right? And now you're rubbing elbows with Steven Spielberg and Oprah Winfrey. So I'm curious, how has this movie changed you as an artist, as an actor, as a performer, as a person, if it's changed you at all?
I think I'm still in process to see how it's changing, because I think we did the work and work that we think is meaningful. And yes, we're working with people who are the best in the business. And the film is about being in service to our humanity in many ways, and about our families, and bringing us together and finding some hope and inspiration, and re-examining what love is. So I think I'm still in process. Now that the film is starting to get out there in the world, I'm seeing how it's landing on people, because I think, Oprah Winfrey wanted to use this film as a device of healing. How can we heal from trauma? She said Color Purple has changed her life. That's the reason why her intention, Scott Sanders, Quincy Jones, Steven Spielberg, their whole intention was to populate this with a fantastic director and great actors and craftsmen in every department and choreographers, because it's so meaningful. It means the world to all of them that a film like this exists for people, for humanity. So it's like, I don't know, it feels fantastic. I'm in the middle of it, so I don't really know, but I know it feels real good.
Yeah. It's touching the people it needs to touch and affecting the people it needs to affect. And I also think, to speak from the other side of it, is that, like, I'm learning from watching, and I'm learning how to just what it's taught me is how to be a better artist, right? Because I'm watching artists like Coleman not only advocate for his characters, but also advocate for us as actors, which I think is really important, as Black actors in Hollywood, within the studio system, watching Blitz fight for us and our choices and our nuance and our colors and our ups and all of that stuff. It matters. And thank you for showing me how to be a leading man. Thank you for showing, for setting that, example, because we just don't have that. I mean, we don't, like, an opportunity where you're on a set full of Black excellence. And I just think it needs to happen more. I think we need more examples of it, and we have to lean into it when it's successful. And but that's on us as well. And again, we have to be the example. We have to set the example, and that's how it's also changed me, in addition to what he's saying. In other ways, I'm still healing and figuring it out too,
This is Samuel Leggett with JVS Media Productions. Both of you guys were standouts. I loved your interpretation of these amazing, iconic characters, but I know it had to be also intimidating, like taking somebody as iconic as Danny Glover, and the shoes that he filled for Mr. was terrifying. But one of the things I love about this film is that you guys were able to unpack them in layers that we never seen before. If people hadn't seen the play, if people hadn't read the book, they're seeing different layers of what generational issues and circumstance and resolution looks like, I think, through these roles in this specific version of these characters. I wanted you guys to kind of talk towards that, in the sense that you already kind of brought it up, like the different generations and what they mean. But I think for you guys, for this current generation, like for me, I learned a lot from my grandfather. I learned like certain elements of like, okay, this is how you treat somebody. This is how you say yes, sir, no, sir. But for this generation watching this movie, I think looking at Mr. now from this interpretation of it, for you, Coleman, what did it mean for you specifically? Or even for you, Corey, when it comes to Hoppo, like him learning from Celie and learning from the mistakes of his father, what that actually means to treat a woman the right way. What do you guys feel like from the reading on the pages and performing it, what do you think it's going to be for this generation right now?
Well, I like to speak to that to kick it off. I think that it was important to divorce myself from any version of this, any version that I've seen before. And I've seen the Color Purple film at least 100 times in my life. It's one of my favorite films. And then, I've seen the Broadway musical as well. I'm fully affected by it. And then when you get an offer like this to step into these, I would say the shoes of Mister, you know, but it's part of a legacy of men who've played Mister. I had to go back to the source material and find out and use my imagination and see how Mister lives in me. The questions I have about Mister, things that may not have been attacked before, because just the way I see him, you know, or the way I'd like to see him, and to make him, I don't know, human and complex, I think, and funny and sexy and a dreamer. There was an opportunity to create this other person. A lot of it was on the page with Marcus Gardley's script as well. But it's like little key little things in there. You know, the moment they handed me a banjo, they're like, "Oh, he plays the banjo in this." I'm like, "Oh," and he's constantly working on his song. He's working on a song, but he doesn't have a song. What does that do to a person? So I wanted to really find all these layers of a person that makes them so complex that it challenges an audience when there's a turn for the character. And someone who's been such a villain the entire time, then they have these vulnerable human moments, and then suddenly you may feel for him. That's a challenge. And I feel like for me, maybe that's part of Coleman, where I'm like, I want to know, how can I feel for someone who does terrible things or who has done terrible things, and see them anew if there is some accountability and there's some healing. That means we both get to heal. Maybe that's my ultimate question as I'm talking about it now. Maybe that's something I'm curious about. I think we're all curious as artists in some way, but it must connect to you as a person. You know, like, so there's a little bit of the questions that I have about not only humanity, about manhood, toxic masculinity, about father-son relationships, about relationships with women, that I'm trying to explore. And it shows up there in collaboration with my artists, my directors, and the whole team. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like when we're talking about these subjects and how much it's bringing up, because like you said, we're still kind of in process and processing what that was and what the color purple is to us today versus when we were even shooting it. But I do remember just having the thought of Harpo. Why does he have to ask Celie, you know, how do I make her mind me? When he's seen his entire life how to do it. Like he's seen it, but he asks her how to make another woman mine. And that in and of itself is radical to me, because I was
right.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, here's a young man who has witnessed it, but there is something inside of him that makes him go, how do I make her mind me? But not in the way that my father does it. I want her to love me as much as I love her. I want her to be filled as much the love. And so it's just interesting, like just thinking about what makes, you know, these characters. Anyways, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent there, but I think that generational trauma, it's all about making a choice, you know, and I'm glad that Harpo makes the choice he makes. He made the wrong choice to put his hands on Sophia, but in the end they find each other, and that's love, man. That's the God in the story.
No, it's so powerful. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, gentlemen. My name is Philippe Patterson from Photology Mag in DC. You guys are wonderful in this film, and I know it was a tall task, a tall order for you. My question for you is, in preparing for your roles, did you draw any inspiration from real life experiences or some type of specific discussions about masculinity in today's context? And what were they?
I think we were Black men. You know what I mean?
To a certain extent, we didn't have to search too far outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it's just some lived experiences, whether we can even acknowledge it or not.
That's
There's
right.
something that lives in us,
Yeah.
and questions we have about how men operate in this world and in that world.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think we're probably even having conversations with our own fathers and grandfathers and looking like, and I mean, I know I was talking last night and made sense to talk about things that I didn't even realize about my stepfather and how different we were and how he would wrestle with my younger brother, but not with me, because I was a bit more of a sensitive kid. and looking, you know, and I wasn't like him. And then what is the dissonance there? And then where's the growth? And where do we start to see each other as Black men in the world? And that we can be all these things and not, you know, just be tropes of masculinity in some way, you know?
That's right, man. It's like there's colors to all of that. There's layers and nuance to who we are as men. And so why not acknowledge that on film, you know, and because representation matters. And it's not just, oh, I gotta see, you know, just Black men on film, but all of the colors of Black men on film is important. And I remember that conversation. It made me think of my father, and he got to. My father doesn't go to, you know, premieres and things like that, but he got to be at this premiere with me, and we got to watch it together. And watching him in a way that I've never seen him respond to. He doesn't watch movies like that. He's not that guy, you know. But
watching his evolution.
yeah, watching that and literally watching that in that moment in real time, him experience the color purple. I was like, wow, man, it kind of opened up some stuff in me. And it also pushed our relationship a little bit further. So yeah, man, I think it's just, it speaks to all of us in the ways it needs to, when it needs to, and how it needs to. Yeah.
Thank you once again, guys. You were phenomenal.
Thank you.
Coleman, Corey, you guys did the thing. You did it great. We love this film, and we're looking forward to seeing it over and over and over again, much as the same as we've done with the original. So on behalf of the world's largest group of Black film and TV critics, thank you for your time today, and thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And you guys, thank you.